Ritter Communications presents the NEA Varsity Podcast, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Here are your hosts, Marcus Carlton and Ryan Fletcher.
Hey, everybody. Marcus Carlton and Ryan Fletcher back here finally after a big hiatus for episode 15 of NEA Varsity Podcast. Ryan, welcome back. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. It's been a while since we've done a show.
All that good stuff, and it has been a while, but we are right into the thick of things here in the second half for basketball. So this is my favorite time of the year, and so far so good in 2020.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm a basketball guy at heart. I love football, but basketball is always going to be my number one. And I'm with you, man. This is the time of year where your conference games get so important here in mid-January, closing in on February. We've got district tournaments. They're within sight now, coming up. In about a month, I guess, is when district tournaments will really get kicked off for some of the smaller classifications, and then you start looking state playoff implications for 5A and up, and we've got a lot of teams in this area that could be some of the ones that make runs deep into the playoffs this year and end up at Hot Springs.
Yeah, and I always love to see a lot of strong representation down there at Hot Springs from our Northeast Arkansas schools. We had a few last year. I can't remember if it was 2 years ago. I believe it was 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago. We had over, I want to say 75% of the games covered, 60 to 75% of the games covered by NEA teams in the finals. So I always like to see that again. I've got, my thoughts on, who has a chance and who probably doesn't. I don't know if we would get as high as that number, but, we got some teams with a shot to get down there again.
No doubt. You've definitely got some favorites from this part of the state. And, we've seen it in years past that if certain teams that, may be on the fence, if they can catch fire right here at the end of January, early February, I mean, crazy things have happened, and you've had some teams come up and make a run that nobody saw coming, and that run ended at Hot Springs. I mean, we've seen that several times over the past few years. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch how all this unfolds. And I've got my eye on a couple of boys teams and a couple girls teams that I think are probably going to end up, at least Final Four, if not all the way down to Hot Springs. It's going to be fun to watch this year. You guys have had a pretty heavy basketball schedule so far over with NEA Sports and Suncom Media. You want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, we have. Last night we actually had a game, and I believe that marked the sixth game of the season. If you look at our schedule, it's been very heavy on Bay, Riverside, and BIC, and that's just kind of how the schedule panned out early in the season. However, for those teams, we do not cover them the rest of the year. So we actually had a game before Christmas, BIC Riverside rivalry. Always a great rivalry. Not quite what it used to be. And I think that has to do with some of the fact that the teams just haven't been as good lately. But Riverside came out and beat them pretty good. I was a little bit surprised by that. And then we turned around the first Tuesday January and had BIC at Bay, and Bay put it to them pretty good as well. BIC has just had they've had a lot of turnover in season. 3 of their seniors left the team. 2 of those 3 were starters, and one of them might have been their best, if not second best player. So, when you have something like that goes on, that's really hard, especially when you got a new coach that's coming. Now, I think Mike Kynard, who's down there, is one of the best. I think that he's going to turn the program around. he's just a good coach. He's very disciplined with his players. And I don't know what the story is and why they left, but I like I said, I think he's a great guy and he's going to do good things down there for him. Now we had Riverside at Bay as well, and had another game at Bay, Rector at Bay. So I want to hit on Riverside real quick. They went 1-1 in those two games that we covered. They beat BIC. They lost to Bay. Riverside is a team that is much improved this season. They're getting some very strong play out of Demo Bowers. He had 46 points early in the year, had a 30-point performance. So he's really taken it to a different level this year. Very proud for him. And they've got some other guys on that team that have stepped up for them. And for a team that won, I think, no more than 8 or 9 games in the last 2 years, they have already surpassed that this year. So far more respectable. I know they have a big conference game tonight against Marmaduke. In terms of just trying to finish higher and in terms of more respectability and getting a better seed to possibly get into that regional tournament. Bay, on the other hand, they won the NEA tournament in the second division. They have played pretty solid basketball since coming back to play the second half. Beat Riverside by about 10. Thumped BIC. They beat Rector at home. That was the other game we covered. That's probably been the best game we've had all year. It was an exciting atmosphere down at Bay. They've really rejuvenated their student section. I'm still flabbergasted by the fan base in terms of the adults. The adults show up, but I mean, that's just like looking over at a bunch of zombies. But the student section, on the other hand, has been great. They're called the Soup Kitchen. Brayson Morris, the senior down there for them, has he's taken that and turned it into something else. And for a small school, it's like a mini version of the Dog Pound or whatever. So
the Soup Kitchen, that's awesome. That's very unique, very creative. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that really caught my attention, and I had to go back to that for a second.
And they on homecoming they wore chef attire and brought pots and pans and
that's awesome.
It's pretty intimidating when the opposing team in the second half is down there trying to shoot free throws. It's pretty neat to watch. So great small school basketball. They ended up Rector and Bay played Tuesday night at Rector, and Rector got them back in an overtime win. So those two teams are going to finish at the top of that conference. Those two and Melbourne. Melbourne's really good. Scott Boland's coaching over there. They had everybody returning. I think Melbourne is the favorite to win, but the two local schools, Rector and Bay, are the two top teams there. And it's going to be a battle once they get to regionals. Of course, they got to take care of business, those three, and make it to two regionals. But once they get to regionals, it'll be a battle with the Clarendons and Earls of the world. So we had Greene County Tech at Jonesboro. I was not able to be there to broadcast that night. Jonesboro took care of business and won. Tech came in. They got probably the best player in Northeast Arkansas, and Zane Butler. Unbelievable player. He's undersized, but he is a scorer. He can shoot. And in an interview he gave us, and it was he and Riley Felkins were actually on the cover with Alana Eaton in the basketball preview. He talked about how a lot of folks have always disrespected him because he is undersized. But I'm going to tell you, if he doesn't finish as the best under the sun, most valuable player, it will have been because he finished maybe second or third in their voting. And Riley Felkins is another guy that's capable of doing that too. But my money at this point is on Zane Butler. I just think he's a phenomenal player. They weren't able to pick up the win over Jonesboro. That's always a tough game. Jonesboro, no matter, even if they're down or they're young, they're still good. I think they're probably a year away from really being a contender at a state title again this year. but we've had them. And then we had Ashdown coming to Manila on a Saturday. And that game's been on the schedule for quite some time. And then Ashdown called and said they couldn't come because the school wouldn't let them spend the night. That's a 4-hour drive down here and a 4-hour drive back. And, I hated that. I thought it would have been good for especially for Manila to play a team like that. But that game got canceled. So we picked up the Bay in its place. With that being said, we do have Manila and Osceola next week. Looking forward to that. But last night we had Riverside girls and Marmaduke girls. Coach Hoffman got with me and said, I'd really, really like for you guys to come down there and broadcast one of our games. Girls don't always get the attention boys get, but Marmaduke and Riverside are two of the best 2A girls teams in the state. Wasn't a very good game last night in terms of scoring. It was pretty sloppy. Marmaduke ended up winning by about 13. Riverside, they just they don't have anybody that can score right now. They're really struggling. And, I'm not saying they can't turn things around because they are the team that made a significant run to get to the finals last year. But Marmaduke secured second place in that conference. And I think they still have a matchup left with, I say that they're 6-2. So they may have lost both times to the Melbourne girls. Melbourne girls are on another planet. I don't see anybody beating them. I think they are. You go ahead and probably give them a state championship trophy right now. But if there is a team that could challenge them, it is the Marmaduke Lady Greyhounds. They looked really good last night. They've got a couple of really good players. And I'm drawing a blank on their name right now. Robinson, Heidi Robinson, and good grief, I'm forgetting the other little girl's name. Both really solid players. They've got several players. Angel Johnson, she's a senior that gives them good minutes. But Marmaduke is a team I could easily see in getting to the finals or at least the Final Four, depending on what side of the bracket they match up with Melbourne. So that's been our schedule thus far. It's been good. Had some really close games, some that kind of got out of hand towards the end. And one thing I've really enjoyed more than anything about the schedule, 4 of the 6 games have been officiated by the legend Curtis Tate. So it's always good to have him with us. And I joked with him last night. I told him, I said, you've got our schedule and you've asked for it to be assigned to all of our ball games to be on TV. And of course, he just laughed and shook my hand and said, no, I don't want on TV. So. Well,
if anybody deserves it, it's got to be the Hall of Fame ref. No
doubt.
It's Curtis and man, Curtis has been reffing a long time because I'm in my early 40s and I remember him reffing games when I played in high school. So he's been around, and I figure there's not much he hasn't seen as far as talent or just. I guess weird things that can happen in a game, and Curtis is always good to talk to and good. He's always got a good story ready for if you just want to sit back and listen. He's a good dude. You were talking a little bit about that 2A Region 3 girls, Melbourne, Marmaduke, Riverside. That's your top 3 in that conference. Melbourne, as you said, undefeated in conference play, 8-0, 16-2 overall, and I have to agree with you. They're on another tier.
They are.
They're just, they don't have any flaws that I've seen, and I haven't seen them a whole lot. But what I have seen is just some really good basketball from them. But they're sitting atop that conference 8-0. Marmaduke's in second place at 7-2 after the win over Riverside. Riverside sitting 6-3 now. But all 3 of those teams, I could see all 3 of those teams putting it together and making a run. Coach Hoffman over at Riverside, and then you never can count out Rick Smith and Marmaduke. I mean, they just, for whatever reason, mid to late February, right around tournament time, even if they're having a down year by Marmaduke standards, they seem to turn it on and always be right there in the thick of things at the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see how many of the teams from that 2A3 region make a deep run in the playoffs.
So, Marcus, we've got a couple of games on our schedule coming up. Tonight, Suncom Media, NEA Sports will be at Brookland. It's the first time we have ever broadcasted there. I believe you guys have done that before.
Yeah,
correct?
we've been there to the new facility at Brookland a few times there, and man, that's a gorgeous facility, and overall it's pretty TV friendly too.
Well, that's good to know. 'Cause, I don't have to handle that portion when we do the broadcasting, but when I do broadcasting, but when the other folks have to set up, I know they appreciate a nice, easy setup. So that's always fun. I'll be honest, I've been in that gym one time in my life, and that was to watch Westside and Southside play in the semifinals to go to state.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best games I've ever seen. I was impressed by it. I thought it was a nice gym. It's still, in my opinion, compared to a lot of these arena type gyms, it's big, don't get me wrong, but the way they kind of set things up still gave it a bit of a small school gym sort of vibe. It gets loud in there, and I liked it a lot. So, but tonight it's a crosstown matchup. Valley View goes to take on Brookland. Should be a great game. Both teams, still trying to compete and finish high up there in their conference. Valley View is coming off a big loss on Tuesday night against Blytheville. Blytheville is another one of those teams that I felt like they were the favorite going into the season. I'd had a couple of the coaches from that conference say that to begin with. Mackenzie Pierce was really high on Blytheville. I mean, that is his team, but he made the comment that it's the best 7 that, as far as talent, that he's ever had. And Mackenzie Pierce has had some pretty solid teams. So, they're pretty good. I'm not going to lie. And they may be right now my favorite as far as choosing one team to get to the state finals. Now I believe Magnolia is the other really good team, and you never know how that's going to work out, but probably want to get on the opposite side of that state tournament bracket. But I was told Coach Davis was saying, if you want to get opposite of them, in assuming they're going to win their region, then you want to either win or win your regional or finish 4th. He said you don't want to finish 2nd or 3rd. And then he kind of explained it's better to finish 3rd than it would be to finish 2nd. Now, we didn't really go into detail into all that, but, coaches look at that sort of stuff,
sure.
And they're trying to lose a game. And I know coaches that have done that before, but I know Brad Davis and Jason Manchester aren't doing that, but they were just kind of laying it out there saying, if you to get opposite of them, that's what you do. Now, Brookland goes in, they've actually got a losing record right now, but Coach Bobby Gross has played a very, very tough schedule, even in non-conference. He's paired up against Ashdown, who was going to play Manila. They play in that Honda of Jonesboro tournament that they host earlier in the year, and always good teams in that. And that they played Jonesboro even in the Barry Pruitt. So they played in the Pruitt Class at the Honda of Jonesboro Classic. They played ICC, and I mean, you think ICC is the favorite to win 1A. Ashdown is a favorite to win 3A, or one of the favorites too. They've played a tough schedule, so that's not indicative of their overall talent is not indicative of their record, and they are a team that will make a run in postseason play. I have no doubt about that. Need to get back into their winning ways. They did beat Highland the other night, who's not very good, but the 2 games before that had lost by only 2 points to Blytheville. Blytheville, the same team that beat Valley View by 20. Now, that doesn't mean anything when these two go at it tonight. I would even go as far to say that talent-wise, Valley View should be the favorite, but we all know Bobby Gross is one of the best coaches in the entire state. He runs that offense that slows things down, and Valley View is a team that likes to run and gun. So it'll be fun to see how those two match up. Even though Valley View's got more talent at home, I like Brookland's chances tonight. I think it's going to be a very close ball game. One thing Valley View's got going for them that nobody else has in that conference, with the exception of Batesville, they got a pretty big kid, is C.J. Delancey. They can go inside to him. He's a top performer, about 6'8". And then Travis Graff is a scorer for them. He's an unbelievable athlete, very quiet kid. He doesn't like a lot of attention. I've tried to interview him before, and he's not a big fan of that. I mean, he's very, very nice and all that, but he's just pretty quiet. So, but Valley View has a ton of weapons. They can score, but they're going to be slowed down tonight, I think. And Brookland, solid group. Ken Strode, a player for them that can really shoot the ball. He's very athletic. Jackson Ballard he and Ken both have gotten significant playing time as freshmen. They're juniors this year. Jackson even started some his freshman year, majority of his freshman year, I believe. He's a good inside player for them. He's not huge as far as an inside player goes, but from a physicality standpoint, I'd put him up against a lot of players. I'd put a lot of these guys that Bobby Gross has up against several players. Drew Thompson, a point guard for them. He can score. They've got a couple seniors, Ryan McGoy and Riley Newton. They get in there, give them minutes. And then they had a move in from Paragould that was their quarterback over there, and a good basketball player for them in Cold Oak. He's another guy that can really play for him. So I think it's going to be one of the better matchups we've had to broadcast all season long. Certainly has, significance within that 4A3 conference in terms of how things shake up. Valley View currently sitting 6-2 in the conference. Brookland 4-4, but a win by Brookland tonight, a loss by Valley View tonight could change things up. So
absolutely, that's as you said, that's a big matchup because Valley View sits at 6-2 in the conference right now, in second place behind undefeated Blytheville. Right on their heels are the Westside Warriors, who are at Batesville tonight, which you got to think that, if you look at standings and overall records, you got to think that Westside will go and take care of business over at Batesville, not discounting anything of the Pioneers and crazy things happen when you go on the road. But, Westside is for all intents and purposes, Westside is expected to win that game tonight. And if Valley View happens to slip up tonight, then they would slide to third and Westside would go to second place. In the conference behind Blytheville, and then Westside has Blytheville coming to the Warrior Dome on Monday night. We will actually be there for that one. We went over to Blytheville earlier in the year when Westside went over there, and it was one of those nights where anything that could go wrong for Westside did, and anything that could go right for Blytheville did. Into the first quarter, I think it was something like 28-9, and Coach Pierce kind of scaled back a little bit, and I think Blytheville ended up winning the game, but somewhere in the 15 to 18 point range. But that could have gotten ugly if Coach Pierce had wanted it to get ugly. I expect Westside to play better this coming Monday night at the Warrior Dome, but I think there will be a lot of people making the trip over to Batesville tonight when Westside goes over there that will have their phones out watching this Valley View Brookland matchup, just to kind of keep an eye on it and see what happens, because there are major conference implications in that, and especially if Brookland was to come up and beat Valley View tonight, that makes Monday night's game Westside Blytheville even bigger. Because it would allow Westside to put a little bit of distance between them and Valley View in second place if they were to pull off the upset. So a lot going on tonight. You mentioned Coach Gross and his team. They're sitting at 8-10 overall. But I mean, if you followed Coach Gross at all, the whole time he's been at Brookland, he always schedules up. They always play way up. Their overall record usually hovers right around 500. But come tournament time, that's not a team you want to see because of the fact that they have played up all year long in competition. and he always has them ready come tournament time. And it seems like every year they find a way, if they're not the top seed, they're going to find a way to upset somebody and just basically upset the apple cart, for lack of a better term, of the top seeds of who is, quote unquote, supposed to win. So Brookland is right about where you would expect them to be this time of the year. They're sitting 4-4 in conference. Right now, I guess technically that'd be fourth place behind Blytheville, Valley View, Westside. And then, they're still, they've still got a lot of basketball left that, it wouldn't surprise me the least little bit to see them get a big upset victory tonight and just kind of move up the standings here as we move towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. And I'll say in the Batesville Westside game tonight, Batesville is a team. They returned majority of their players, and I'm not going to lie when I say that at media day, I'm pretty sure Coach Pierce, Coach Manchester, Coach Whitmire, and Coach Gross all mention them as the dark horse in the conference.
Correct. Yes.
And, and Batesville's got a close win over Brookland. That's a dangerous game for Westside tonight, especially going on the road. So they'll Westside definitely have to bring their A game tonight against them. But yeah, both of these matchups tonight, big matchups within that conference. I'm not sure who Blytheville's got. Of course, they've got a 2-game lead to begin with. But
yeah, Blytheville's got Highland tonight, so
they can kind of take it easy tonight versus the other four that are going to be in an absolute battle.
Yeah, and Highland is at Blytheville tonight. So, what you want to accomplish there if you're Coach Pierce is you get in, you get your big lead, and then maybe you get some of these guys in who don't play as much and get them some time under the bright lights, because you may get into a situation later on this year where you need them in a close game. And you can, we've talked about this before, Ryan. There's such a big difference between, scrimmaging in practice and being under the bright lights of the game. It's the same. You're doing the same things, but it's just different when you're in that game night atmosphere. And if you've not been in it before and you get in a very tight game, you could be a little tight yourself and lead to some unnecessary mistakes if you've not had court time earlier in the year. So I think this will be a good opportunity for Blytheville tonight to maybe get some of these kids that are a little further down the bench some game time experience and have them ready for close games down the road, maybe if somebody gets in foul trouble or something. So there's some good games tonight, man. You brought up a very good point there with Batesville. I had honestly forgotten about, all the coaches talking about them being the dark horse back on media day. And, I made the drive over to Batesville last night because the Westside girls were playing last night. Got a chance to see Izzy Higginbotham a little bit. And man, she's as good as advertised, but that's not an easy trip to go over there. There's not a good way to go. It's a long bus ride. And then, the gym, that was my first time at Batesville's gym last night. It's a unique environment as well. It's very loud. The sound has nowhere to escape. It just echoes and it kind of gets in your head a little bit. And if that place is rocking tonight and Batesville is hanging close, I mean, that atmosphere could definitely play a major role in tonight's game.
No doubt about that. I think it is one that I'll be texting you to give me a score update or whatever.
Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping tabs on that as well, and then I'll have my phone out watching that Valley View Brookland matchup because I think that'll be a good one as well. So
I really do too. What I like about it more than anything, it's a team that loves to slow it down, that is defensive minded first versus a Valley View team that likes to run and gun and it's a battle of whose style is going to play out and win. Typically, Brookland does a pretty good job of slowing just about anybody down. That being said, still, talent oftentimes can prevail even if you are slowed down. So, like I say, I think Valley View's got more talent, but Brookland they're just tough, and especially at home. I just, for whatever reason, could see them coming out on the winning side tonight.
Coach Gross's teams are always excellent at upsetting the rhythm of teams that like to run.
Yes.
They just, and I think a lot of tonight depends on, Valley View is going to have to be their focus is going to have to be laser sharp to not get frustrated when Brookland, goes to their slow down and pass it 80 times before they shoot it, and not let it frustrate them to the point where it takes them out of their game. They being Valley View, if their focus stays on and they can stay in their game and just try to take the rhythm as it comes and not force it, I think that will be a major role in tonight's game. But Brookland is so good; they are so good at just frustrating their opponents with their defense and taking them out of their game and forcing them to play the style that Brookland wants to play. And when they get a team forced into their style, good things happen for Brookland.
No doubt. No doubt about that.
Well, Ryan, man, we've got game prep to go do, man. We need to get you out of here and let you go do some game prep for tonight. And I'm going to work on some of our stuff for Monday, and then also look forward to Westside and Batesville tonight. And hey, we'll try to get back on our regular schedule of doing this once a week and keeping everybody informed of everything going on. And man, I'm like you, man. This is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, it's especially when you get into postseason, into February, it's a lot of fun. I feel like I'm at a gym almost every night, which sometimes that can get old. Sometimes I like to sit at that, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So hoping everybody can watch our broadcast tonight, and then you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll be up Monday night. We'll have Blytheville at Westside at the Warrior Dome on Monday night. But we're releasing this on Friday, so tonight you can be sure and tune into Suncom and NEA Sports Valley View Brookland matchup. Coming from the very nice, is it Jordan Arena? I'm not sure what the name of the arena is there at Brookland. Bearcat Arena, maybe.
I'm not sure.
We'll didn't mean to give Jordan's a plug there, but I guess I did. But either way, that's a very nice arena, and it'll have some great basketball going on tonight. So for Ryan Fletcher, I'm Marcus Carlton, and you've been listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the NEA Varsity Podcast, a production of Ritter Communications, brought to you by Tubetown and NEA Sports. Be sure you're subscribed to the NEA Varsity Podcast to get the latest episodes. Tubetown is a community partnership of Ritter Communications.